Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and I'm just going to have the first game against the Tampa Bay Lightning play in the background as I catch you guys up to date on what my team looks like before the first game and what I did. And then as we jump into before the second game, you'll see some of the changes coming through and all that good stuff. So we'll start off with trading a couple players for 7th round picks. Just to really free up some spaces for my team. Again, if you watched the first episode, I couldn't sign anybody because my team was full. So what I did was just try to find people that did not have the 3 million cap, the 3 million salary, and get rid of them. Because if I got rid of the 3 million people, I would have been underneath the salary cap. So I did a couple of those trades to free up some space, and then I offered Sven Barchi and Yurko a couple contracts in the free agency. And then I also traded my backup goaltender Blomqvist and a 2nd round pick to, I believe it was New Jersey. And I got Tatar and Bernier on my team just to help it out just a little bit more. But that being said, again, I mean, my team's not that great. The first game was pretty rough. With that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and go through the highlights of the first game and the following games after that. I don't know if I'm going to get through 9 or 10 games depending on how long it takes for each highlight. The first game was pretty brutal, but we're going to go ahead and get into it, and we'll start off with what happened in Game 1 versus Tampa Bay. Alright, so the game started off pretty decent. I had some decent hopes for it. We went through the first like 5-ish minutes without really giving up a goal. And then about 8 minutes in, Tampa Bay gets their first goal up on the board. But I felt pretty good because a little later in the period, we got a power play, which I felt pretty good about. Power play is a good chance to get a goal. They have the new system where you can like really set it up. They have like the distributor now and the carrier and all that other stuff. So I felt pretty good about the power play. Unfortunately, about 30 seconds later after the power play started, Tampa Bay scores again another shorthanded goal. But a few seconds after that shorthanded goal, some hope comes back into our team as we get a goal for us. Zach Kassian hits a power play goal and blasts it into the net. Going on to the second period, a couple big hits start off again. And then Tampa Bay scores about 8 minutes once again into the second period, making it a 3-1 deficit for us. Couple more big hits end up happening. It's a pretty physical game. And then Tampa Bay says they didn't care and they scored once again, making it 4-1. And then we fight back just a little bit. A couple minutes later, we get a goal as well, and it is now 4-2. But Tampa Bay wants to make sure they put the nail in the coffin that we are not winning this game by getting 2 more goals before the end of the second period, making it 6-2 before we go into the third. Within the first 10 minutes, nothing really happens, and then a little bit after the 10-minute mark, we end up getting a goal. So it's looking like I thought we were going to do worse than this, but it wasn't actually that bad. So we're down 6-3 now. Tampa Bay ends up scoring again a few minutes later, and we end up swinging back again, making it 7-4. So we're fighting. We are fighting. We just cannot keep the puck out of our net. And then to finish it off, Tampa Bay is going to score another goal, followed by a couple more hits on their side, a couple more hits on our side, and the final score ended up being 9-4. But I wasn't too disappointed with Game 1. I thought it was a pretty solid game. I thought we played pretty well for a team that's rated 92 overall. So I didn't think we did too bad. And then this was before we got Tatar, before we got Bernier. And then, Berchi and Yurko are still pending. Let's hope Game 2 is a little bit better. Alright, starting off Game 2, we're going against the Seattle Kraken. Hopefully we can pick up a win here. We got some crazy saves by Dreiger, giving my team some hope. Like, we look pretty good on the ice, and that was a great sequence of offense by my team, and I feel pretty good. However, a few minutes later, Seattle ends up pretty much squashing that feeling by scoring a goal, and then the first period will close out with a couple of good saves from Dreiger and from Bernier as well. So Bernier's playing in his first game since being acquired. Now moving on to the second period, we're about 3 minutes in. Bernier makes another tremendous save, and then a few minutes later, after somebody goes for a dangle, they end up getting completely smashed in the offensive zone by one of Seattle's players. A couple minutes later, we end up scoring a goal. The defenseman Parkkinen, who's like a 60 overall, with a toe drag wrist shot to the back of the net, making it 1-1. I'm feeling great. However, we fast forward about 8 minutes later, and Seattle puts my hope again down in the gutters. Moving on to the third period, we've got a big hit from Zach Kassian to start off the third period. A couple minutes later after that, a sequence of big events from us in the defensive zone. I mean, like I said, we are a pretty rowdy team. We throw our hits, we finish our checks. I like that our team is a little gritty. And then we end up getting a power play which we end up cashing in on. Beautiful pass from Thomas Tatar over to Zach Cassian over on the backside. It's so weird because Zach Cassian is not a goal scorer, but he puts it in the back of the net, tying the game up. Moving on to a couple of big saves in the last minute from Dreiger and Bernier, and we end up tying at the end of regulation, moving on to overtime. A couple minutes into overtime, big hit from us. Again, very gritty team, love to see it. And then Bernier keeps us alive with a great save a couple minutes later. And then with a great off the rush transition, Justin Bailey on the backside, less than a minute to go, puts it in the back of the net, securing our first victory for this season, beating the Seattle Kraken 3-2 in overtime. It was amazing. I love seeing that. I was so hyped, and I'm excited. Let's go ahead and move on to Game 3. All right, guys, so just a quick little update. Thomas Yurko has signed with us, and Sven Barchi has signed with us. I'm pretty sure he had an E in his name last time, but we got Barchi and Yurko on the team now, so I'm going to go ahead and put them in for, who is this? I don't remember picking this guy up. Noye, Guli, Sherbach. Okay, looks like I picked up a bunch of people. Okay, good. All right, perfect. I think I'm going to keep Parkkinen. I like the way Parkkinen has been playing. I'm going to go ahead and edit my lines and go straight into Game 3. I'm going to put people where I want them, but Parkkinen did pretty good in that last game. I liked him. I'm going to keep him up, and that bottom line definitely needs to be changed. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll jump into Game 3. Alright, moving on to Game 3 against Carolina. We got the first game with Thomas Yurko and some of the other players. First 9 minutes of the game, nothing really happens, but then we get a very, very close call for a goal. Almost squeaks by Craig Anderson, but he squeezes them cheeks and makes sure it doesn't go in. 5 minutes later, Paul Stasny says he's had enough of this stalemate as he pretty much runs through my defense and scores a goal. And then the end of period, we got a couple of big hits just to show that we're not going down without a fight. Skipping to the second period, it was kind of a stalemate for most of this period. Nothing really happened. Big defensive battle. A couple good saves from Bernier, but very defensive. Nothing really going on. Nothing really happening. Skipping over to the third period, Carolina said they had enough of that. 2 minutes in, they score another goal, making it 2-0. 5 minutes later, we put the pressure on Anderson. He makes 2 big saves, keeping Carolina with that 2-goal lead. And then about a minute later, Carolina responds, but Bernier stops him nice and cold. 6 minutes later, big hit from our team. And then just a few seconds later, we end up putting it in the net. Thomas Yurko, his first game, first goal under the Thunderbirds banner. Love to see it as we close the gap 2-1. And then as the period is dwindling down, a couple big hits in the defensive zone. I mean, it's just getting gritty. We got Bernier with a couple big saves towards the end of the game, but solid defense by Carolina. We could not get it out of our defensive zone, and they end up taking the win home 2-1, and we end up falling short. Let's go ahead and move on to Game 4. Alright, moving on to Game 4. It's one of the first games, or it is the first game between 2 of my created teams. We're going against the Riverside Wolves, and I'm feeling pretty good because on paper, we are the better looking team. Within the first 5 minutes, we scored 2 goals, first is by Paul, second by Tomas Tatar, and then a couple minutes later, the Wolves actually scored a goal, which actually surprised me because I didn't think they were going to score at all, making it 2-1. A few minutes later, a couple big saves from Voutilainen, and then a huge save from Bernier off a turnover from us. We seem to have that problem in this game in particular. Moving on, another big hit from our team before we close out the first period, moving on to the second. Second period was a big defensive game. The first like 10 to 15 minutes, big saves from Voutilainen and Bernier alike. Then getting down to close to the last 5 minutes, we increased the lead by another goal as Justin Bailey puts it in behind Voutilainen. And then if you haven't picked up on our grittiness in hitting just before the second period ends, big hit from one of our guys. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the third period. Third period starts off pretty slow. First like 7 minutes, nothing really happens, but then the Wolves are coming out of nowhere and score 2 back-to-back goals. First goal was a laser, second one on a breakaway, and the game is all tied up. A couple minutes later, they continue to put the pressure on. Bernier makes an incredible save, and then a few minutes after that, Bernier makes another big save. And then unfortunately 3 minutes later, the Wolves with the unrelenting pressure puts one behind Bernier, giving them the advantage and the lead. We end up picking up a power play at the end of the game, but the Wolves defenses are too strong for us, and we end up falling to the Riverside Wolves 4-3 when I could have sworn we would have beat them when their stats were not that good. They did pick up a couple players in Valtteri Filppula and Colin Blackwell, but our team on paper is way better, and we still ended up falling. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. Alright, moving on to Game 5 against the Salt Lake City Paladins, another one of my created teams. I don't know if they're in my division or not, but again, similar situation with the Wolves. It should be an easy win. On paper, we have the advantage. 30 seconds into the game, Bernier with a huge save as the Paladins put on some big pressure. And then about a minute later, we have a big hit from Arturo once again. Huge hits, man. That's what he's known for, and that's what he's going to continue to do. And then, unfortunately, 2 minutes later, Salt Lake City puts a goal in the back of the net, making it 1-0. And then they double down on making sure that, they are in the lead with another huge hit on one of our players. Skipping to another 5 minutes, about 10 minutes left in the period. Krauselj, I think is his name, makes a couple of huge saves. And then throughout the period, he just keeps stopping us as we continue to put on the pressure. So it's not that we weren't getting the chances, it's just that this goaltender, at least in the first period, was all over us. Skipping down to the last 3 minutes in the period, Salt Lake City continues to put the pressure on as they score another goal. And then 30 seconds later, scores another goal after that, making it 3-0. You can imagine my frustration. Moving on to about a couple minutes left in the period, Krauselj makes a huge save, keeping that shutout going in the first period, and then we're going to end it off with another big hit. But Krauselj is really saving these guys in the beginning period, and unfortunately, they're just getting through with their shots. Moving on to the second period, not as eventful as the first one. We did have a 5-on-3 opportunity that unfortunately slipped away from us because we took penalties and then we just couldn't score. Krauselj makes another big save, and then on the penalty kill, Bernier makes another good save, keeping the lead to just 3. Third period starts off, Krauselj with another big save, and then the power play starts off. 6 seconds into the power play, Novak scores his first goal, making it 3-1. And then about 20 seconds later, we're putting the pressure on as Eakin gets his goal, making it 3-2. Feeling pretty good here, we got some momentum. Feels like we're going to catch up maybe a little bit here. Big hit a few minutes later coming from us. Huge hit in the offensive zone for us. Love seeing that. Hopefully that momentum can carry us to a tie so we can end up winning. A few minutes later, Krauselj, again, more big saves from him. And then unfortunately, less than 1 minute remaining, the Paladins put another goal behind Bernier, making the final score 4-2. Very frustrating to see that because this team was, I believe, only one spot above us. They're not doing that great versus how our team is doing, but that's going to drop us down to 1-4 in the first 5 games. Let's go ahead and do a few more games before closing out the episode. Hopefully we can pick up a dub. Alright, moving on to Game 6 against the Firebirds. Again, another team that looks like we can beat on paper. A few minutes into the game, big hit in our defensive zone, setting the tone for the game. And then about a minute later, by getting another big hit, which leads to a fight. My creative character, Paul, going against somebody named Hellenius. It's a good scrap. Paul ends up coming out on top, and it's a big momentum shift for us. Another minute later or so, Lehigh Valley just doesn't care that we won that fight, ends up scoring the first goal of the game. And then a few minutes later after that, they piggyback off of that by getting another goal. About 5 minutes later, a huge hit from our end, just trying to get some momentum going, trying to do something to get our team sparked up. We should be winning this game. We should not be down 2-0 in the first period, but again, Lehigh Valley does not give a crap about us as they score a couple minutes later and put the lead 3-0. Then just as the period is about to end, just some crazy offensive pressure from Lehigh Valley. This tic-tac-toeing their passes. These guys are like 60s, and they're just tic-tac-toeing their passes, putting a lot of pressure on us, and we end up surviving the first period by just allowing only 3 goals. Moving on to the second period, we start off again. The period was a big hit, starting off the same way. We're very, gritty and grindy, but it's not converting to goals. We end up getting a power play, and Sandberg ends up stopping a couple of really good opportunities. And at this point, my hope for this game is really going down until Tomas Tatar finally finds an opening, puts it behind Sandberg, getting our first goal of the game and his second goal of the season, making it 3-1. A little bit of hope is coming back into my eyes, but not that much. Period ends off with a good save from Bernier. As you can see, the guy just runs right. He goes right past the defenseman and gets a good shot on Bernier, who ends up stopping it. Very perplexing to see that. Moving on to the third period, we're going to start off with Bernier with a great save just to really keep us in the game, if there even is a game left to be played. 30 seconds later, I get proven right by my creative character Paul, who got into the fight earlier, ends up getting a goal, closing the distance. We're only down by 1. The crowd is loud, loving it, and we are getting closer to at least tying to give us a chance of beating this team. Then about a minute later, the forecheck pressure from my dad's creative character ends up with a goal on our side. It ends up with no call. Beagle kind of runs into the goalie. I was expecting a goaltender interference call. No call. Maybe the refs are blind in this game too, but it's a good goal. Ended up tying it 3-3. So I have a little bit of hope now. For the next 10 minutes or so, nothing's really happening. A couple of big saves from Sandberg towards the end of the period. And then the last minute, we got a couple of big hits. And then Sandberg again keeping the game alive and forcing us to go to OT with a huge save. Then going on to OT, good pressure from the Firebird as they get a really good shot on Bernier, who ends up stopping us, keeping us alive in OT. Unfortunately, for some reason, they keep the first line out there for like almost half of the OT. And the Firebird end up taking advantage and scoring a one-time goal, which allows them to take the win in OT. But hey, at least we got a point. It's just frustrating to see because it's like these are teams we should be beating, you know, and they're not even that good yet, right? The AI teams aren't even that good, and they're just really beating us down. But yeah, that's going to extend the losing streak to I think 4 or 5 now. So that's really great. Let's go ahead and go on to the next game. Alright, moving on to Game 7. We got the special intro with the Paladins once again, so you know this game is serious. So, first few minutes of the game, nothing's really happening. Kind of a defensive game, very slow start. But about 6 minutes into the game, we get the first tally of the game. Thomas Tatar puts in the back of the net for the 3rd goal of the year. I'm feeling pretty good about this game. Hopefully we can come out on top and get a dub. Moving on a couple minutes later, huge saves by the opposing goaltender Novotny. Sequence of events leads to a penalty being drawn. Huge saves from Novotny. Big pressure from us. Love seeing it. And we get on the power play. A couple minutes later, continuing that pressure, Novotny, what a save he made. Huge opportunity for us to put it in the back of the net, and he denies us. About 1 minute later, we get another good opportunity, and JB, my creative character, ends up putting it in the back of the net for his 2nd of the year. Great pressure from us. I'm feeling really good about this game, but hopefully we're able to maintain this pressure and keep this lead for a win in the end. Skipping down to the last minute of the period, Michael Stone puts in the back of the net to almost secure my hope in a dub for this game. We lead 3-0 going into the 2nd period. Going into the 2nd period, Novotny makes a huge save about 5 minutes in, and then a few seconds later we get a big hit again on someone. And that's the theme of our team. I love the big hits, love to see it. A couple minutes later, Bernier, what a save, a one-timer 2-on-1. I got to work on that defense because it's been tragic the past few games. But Bernier keeping us alive, and then a few minutes later, keeping us alive once again with a huge desperation save. Fast forwarding a few more minutes down to the last 5 or so minutes, Antonio, my other creative character, puts in another goal, 4-0, his first of the season. You'll love to see it. I'm feeling really, really good, but we are not out of the water just yet. Moving on to the 3rd period. Zach Cassian putting on the pressure. 30 seconds into the 3rd, he puts us up by 5 goals. I'm pretty confident we're going to win this game, but you never know what's going to happen. 3 minutes later, big hit on the penalty kill leading to an injury on the opposing team. Huge hit from Cody Eakin. You love to see it, but that didn't slow down the team because, well, one, the guy was right back on the ice the next play. And then about 20 seconds later, the Paladins put the puck behind the net for their first goal of the game. I'm getting a little nervous, but about a minute later, we end up scoring once again. So my nerves end up being eased. And then nothing else really happens for the remainder of the game. And we end up taking home the win 6-1. Felt good to actually get a win this time. This is what I thought what the first game was going to be like. So it's nice to see that my team can actually kind of play. And with that being said, we got a couple more games to cover, and then we'll be done. Alright, moving on to the first game with the Maple Ridge Assassins. Game 8, we got the special intro so that we know they mean business. First period starts off within the first 5 minutes. We already get one up on the board. My critic character JB getting his third goal of the season. And then Beagle is going to topple on top of that 30 seconds later with a goal of his own. Feeling really good about the game coming out the gate, 2-0. And then about 5 minutes later, the goaltender Vinny with a great save from us. And then again, another 5 minutes later, Vinny with another very good save. But we're putting up really good pressure. I'm liking this. I'm liking this team. I'm liking the role we're on right now. About 2 minutes left in the period, we put a goal in. Power play goal. Azzaroni, my critic character, shoves it in the net. And we're going to take a 3-0 lead into the second period. 2 minutes into the second period. Oh, what a play. Vinny with a great save. A couple minutes later, the Assassins end up getting a goal that I saw coming because the guy had so much time and space. And once the computer winds up a certain way, it usually ends up going in. And it does. Cutting the lead down to only 2 goals. 30 seconds later, another big hit from us. Doesn't matter if we're up, doesn't matter if we're down, we are still hitting. Love to see it. A few minutes later, Bernier with a great one-timer save. The Assassins are fighting hard. I'm getting a little nervous here because they're pushing back pretty hard, and my nerves didn't go unwarranted because a minute later they put another goal in the back of the net. They just outworked the people in the defensive zone. I don't know what's going on with my defensemen. Maybe try to find another one to help out my defense, but the Assassins close the gap and make it only a 1-goal game. However, Zach Cassian 1 minute later says he's had enough of this. It puts it in the net, eases my tension, gets his 4th goal of the season, making it 4-2. And then before the end of the second period, Jay Beagle gets his 2nd goal of the night, his 3rd of the season. It's looking really good for us as we head into the third. Third period starts off with Zach Cassian, big hit in the offensive zone, just really hammering in the point that we want to win this game. A few minutes later, less than 10 minutes to go, Bernier, cross-crease save. Absolutely incredible on that save. And then with just about 5 minutes left, the Assassins come back again with a not very impressive goal, but they end up scoring it. I don't know how Bernier was unable to get that. He had that incredible cross-crease save and then was unable to get this weird, weak backhand shot. I guess it happens, but it's just kind of crazy. Reinforcing that, 30 seconds later, Bernier makes an incredible save, and it just like contrasting differences with these saves. I'm starting to get what people are saying under the forums of like goalies can make these crazy desperation what a save, but when it comes to the basic ones, they're having a hard time with that. And then the games end up finishing up. Vinny makes an incredible save as well, just kind of hammering down the point I just made. And the game ends up ending with a 5-3 win over the Maple Ridge Assassins. I don't like that we gave up 3 goals, but I'm happy that we got the win, and I'm happy that we're actually winning a little bit. Let's see what happens in the last couple games, and that'll be it for this episode. Alright, going on to Game 9 with the Minneapolis Piggies. A friend helped me build this team. That's why this team is got pink in it, because she likes pink. Anyway, this is the team that Tyler Bozak in the first episode said, nah, we're going to go play for them. Within the first 2 minutes, Bernier makes an incredible save, keeping us tight into the game. I'm feeling pretty good about this game. I think it's going to be a pretty tight game. Let's see what ends up happening there. 30 seconds later, Zagadulin on the other team, the other goaltender, with a huge breakaway save, keeping the game tied. 7 minutes later, around the 11-minute mark, Bernier with a big save, keeping the puck out of the net, keeping our hopes alive, and keeping the game tied at 0-0. 3 minutes later, my boy Beagle gets tripped up, draws another penalty. Or he gets slashed, actually. I swear, Beagle's the one that gets targeted for tripping and slashing. He's like a magnet for being tripped and slashed. Poor guy. 3 minutes later, Zagadulin with a huge save. Again, this goaltender's doing pretty well. We cannot get past him. Good pressure in the last 30 seconds or so, but we are unable to get past Zagadulin once again, and we're going into the second period tied at 0. Second period starts off pretty slow. Nothing really happens. Good defensive battle. Easy saves for both of the goaltenders. About 7 minutes into it, a very good slap shot, very good chance, but Zagadulin snags it away. And then unfortunately, a minute later, Tyler Bozak said he's had enough of our stuff, and he puts it in the back of the net, putting the Piggies up 1-0, and I guess really making me regret, him going there. Fuck you. Anyway, about a minute later, Thomas Tatar says that's not good enough. He puts one in the back of the net behind Zagadulin, getting his 5th of the season and tying the game at 1. Less than 5 minutes to go. We got a big hit from Cyclone Novak, one of my created characters, in the middle of the ice. The guy goes down. We get the puck. 20 seconds later, we get the puck into the zone. Novak once again receives the puck and puts it in the back of the net. So really, Novak is the reason that we were able to score that goal, and he gets rewarded accordingly. Moving on to the third period. Kind of slow again. A slow start, similar to the second period. Within the first 2 minutes, a terrible play that turned into a turnover that almost was a goal, but Bernier ends up saving it on the power play. So that could have been a shorthanded goal. Again, I got to work on that defense. A few minutes later, Zagadulin again with a huge save with about 13 minutes left to go. Then fast forward another few minutes, a good chance that we end up missing a blast by Paul that goes pretty wide. But it was a pretty good shot. If he ended up on net, it probably would have gone in. So for the last 5 or 6 minutes, I was a little nervous, but we get down to the last 30 seconds. We got a big hit on Tyler Bozak, making sure that he knows that he made a mistake going to the Piggies. And then Zach Cassian with 2 seconds left puts it in the empty net, securing our victory. And he gets his 5th on the season. So we end up with a win, and I believe we're on a 3 or 4 game win streak. And with that being said, that's going to be it. All right, we've got 9 games played. We are 4-4-1. Not as bad as I thought we were going to. We had a very, very rough start, but we're 4-4-1. Our fan happiness was actually down to like 38 at one point, but it's back up to 70 because we've won, I think, a couple or 3 or 4 in a row, right? So we've won about 3 in a row, but it's looking pretty good here. I'm actually feeling a little bit better than when we first started the season. Let's take a look at the points here. We're doing pretty good. Cassian's leading the team. I think I might take the assistant captain off of Novak and put it on Tatar, because Tatar's up here too. 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points. JB, my creative character, also has 8 points, followed by a couple other characters down here. But we're doing pretty good. The only characters, or the only players I say are really going to be struggling is the goalies, but that's because the time is so short. So they don't really get a lot of shots, so they need to make a majority of the saves or their save percentage is going to tank. There's no other way around it besides making the game longer, which I don't want to do. And then we got poor Moldova here, still suffering from the defeat of the Tampa Bay Lightning of the first game. 9 goals against him, and they have not switched him in just yet. But, yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good here. I'm feeling all right for the next couple episodes and stuff like that. Not too bad. I don't know if we're going to make the playoffs. I believe it's going to be, of course, like the top 18 teams. I don't know if they're going to do it by conferences. We'll see as we get closer towards the end of the year. But, yeah, that's going to be it for this episode, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, definitely appreciate a like, comment, or subscribe. And we'll be back to get some more dubs here in a minute.